Hi everyone and welcome to Unit Review. We're your hosts Jack
and Dan.
Today we're going to be talking about the canoptic scarabs in the Necrons.
Yes, in the Necron list, everyone's favourite annoying little bugs.
I absolutely love them. Swarms are the best. But anyways, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about its strengths, its weaknesses, how to play them, how to verse them, and basically just go through the entire stat block to give you ideas on how to use them and field them.
Yes. So there's a very versatile little unit, and they also pack a hidden punch, which we'll come on to. But let's start with the stat block.
Yeah, for sure.
So they have a move of 10 inches.
Yep.
They're only toughness 2, so most things are winning them on 3s or possibly 2s even.
Yeah.
They've only got a 6-up save, but they do have 4 wounds per base.
Yep.
And leadership is 8+. But critically as well, something to remember is they have an OC of 0, no objective control. Although there are ways around that we'll come on to in a minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are. You can see very much from that stat line that they are. They can move quite quickly, but that's about. And they have a few wounds to chew through, but that's basically it.
So far, again, as all of our videos, it starts off bad, but you can kind of see it always gets better. So yeah, moving 10, great. So the unit themselves, it's been a bit of a downgrade from 9th. So in 9th, you could take 9 of these.
Yeah, units of 9.
Which is why I've got so many of them, because I used to love to swarm them. But in this new edition, in 10th edition, you can bring them in squads of 3 or squads of 6.
Yes.
And they are 40 points and 80 points respective.
Yeah.
So again, 6 of these, that many wounds,
Yeah, 24 wounds, not to be sniffed at for 80 points, is it?
Some things can get through that a lot better than others.
Yeah.
So that's that. What about the keywords then?
So obviously they've got the faction keyword of Necrons. Their other keywords have got Swarm, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
They've got Fly, which is useless in 10th. And they're also Canoptic, which is very important as we come on to that.
Surprisingly.
And obviously Scarab Swarms is the unit keyword.
Exactly. So again, nothing really majorly different about that. Again, Fly lets you move over enemy models, but you won't be doing that very much with this unit. The weapons themselves, again, they've only got a melee one for this one. It is 6 attacks, so for each one of these, that has been improved since 9th.
They had 4 in 9th,
Yeah. So squad of 6 attacks, that's getting quite a few through.
You're rolling these alt dice again, isn't it?
Yeah. Plus lethal hits on there. So this is 6 attacks, hitting on 5s, strength 2, AP 0, and damage 1.
So you're really wanting them 6s for lethals, aren't you? Really?
Exactly.
Strength 2.
You're fishing for those 6s at the end of the day, basically. There are some good things later on that will improve that as we get onto it. But again, so far, it's average at best.
Yes.
Now we've got a couple of abilities. So Dan, you want to take me through the first one?
Yes. I mean, they've obviously got the faction one is reanimation protocol. So that,
of course.
So they will reanimate D3 wounds in your command phase.
Yep.
And if that means that can mean that you can bring a destroyed model back as well if that's possible.
Definitely.
So that's very helpful. And one of the reasons bringing a destroyed model back is so good is because it ties in really well with the first ability, which is self-destruction. And I absolutely love this one.
I love to hate it because I whenever people play it against me, I get smashed. They just destroy models left, right. Whenever I use it, I'm just not getting anything.
Rolling them ones.
Just awful. But yes, what does it do then?
So at the start of the fight phase, if this unit is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, you can select 1 model in this unit and destroy it. So it's taken off the board. And then you roll a d6 and you add 1 to the result if the unit that you're targeting is a vehicle.
Yep.
And on a 2 to a 5, the target unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and on a 6+, it suffers 3 mortal wounds.
Not bad.
So remember, you're adding 1 to that dice roll against vehicles, so they have this anti-tank punch.
Yeah.
It's not monsters, just vehicles, but they have that punch, that ability to blow 1 base up.
Yeah.
Just don't roll a 1.
Yeah, I always do that for these guys.
And do some wounds, Yeah,
and I think that's really handy. 3 mortal wounds. That's possibly a Terminator did.
Yeah.
For nothing, and it's like for the amount of cost. What's it?
So 1 base is 13.3 recurring points.
Yeah.
So if you can take out a 45-point Terminator or something, 40-point Terminator.
Exactly. But then also tying that in with the reanimation side of things, you will explode it, but you'll then get it back in your next command phase if it's not dealt with. So you're making them lose models, and you're still not losing anything because you're gaining them back. Yeah. So it's good to bear that one in mind.
Yeah, really good point.
Yeah.
And what's the other ability ability.
So the other one is called Chittering Swarm.
Yes.
While an enemy unit is within engagement range of this unit, you subtract 1 from the objective control characteristics of the models in the enemy unit. But this is to a minimum of 1.
Yes.
So you can't go from 1 to 0. You can only go from like 2 to 1, 3 to 2.
Yeah.
So those sort of things.
It's handy against those, if you're contesting objectives, it's handy against those battle line units with an OC of 2, isn't it? Because it drops them down to 1 each.
Exactly right.
But there's also there's another benefit to this, isn't there?
There is. So this is where the keyword cryptech comes in. So while this unit is within 6 inches of a friendly cryptech model, the objective characteristics of this model goes to 1. So from 0 to 1.
So if you watched the Technomancer video the other day, he's a cryptech. The 4 cryptechs are Technomancer, Chronomancer, Plasmancer, and Psychomancer.
Spot on. Nailed it.
Nobody ever uses a Psychomancer.
Yeah, who's that one? No one cares.
But yeah, so if they're within 6 inches of that, then they do gain OC.
Yeah.
So again, if you can, we'll talk about this later, but you can imagine pairing those as well. So if you move the Scarabs up to subtract OC from your opponent's battle line and also benefit from that +1 to the Scarabs, and all that can be quite a big swing.
Sways an objective. Yeah, for sure. Definitely worth it. So moving on to what it works best in. So the detachment first, Dan. What's the best detachment?
I mean, ultimately for the role or roles that they can play in your army, they can go in pretty much any detachment.
Yeah.
The detachment where they possibly you could argue they work best is Canoptek Court because Scarabs are a Canoptek unit.
Yes, true.
So in the Canoptek Court, they get to reroll 1s to hit all the time, and they get full rerolls while they're in your power matrix.
So that's really good when you're fishing for them 6s for those.
For lethal hits, it's going to help, but the benefit really is marginal on Scarabs, as they have relatively poor damage melee output and no shooting.
Yes.
So it does benefit them, but it's incremental. It's not massive.
Exactly. Yeah. Very nice.
And what about stratagems?
Yeah, so there's a few stratagems that are going to be there. So if you're running them in a Canoptek Court, there are 2 stratagems mainly that might come in clutch. But again, typically you'd want to be using these on higher value targets in your list. But yeah, I guess no harm in mentioning them.
No, I mean it's probably going to be deeply situational, but there will be occasions where this could score you points. So yeah,
points win games.
Yeah,
that's the main thing you need to take away. So I guess there's 2 of them in here. So I guess I'll cover the first one.
Okay.
Reactive subroutines is the first one. So again, Canoptek Court one. You use this in your opponent's movement phase just after enemy unit moves, finishes a normal move or advance or fallback move.
Yes.
You target 1 Canoptek unit from your army that's within 9 inches of that unit. You can make a normal move up to 6 inches.
Yes.
So again, maybe you're looking to, I guess, get this unit onto an objective to reduce someone's OC.
Yes.
Not a bad call. Again, very situational, but can come in clutch, as we say.
Yeah. So with other units, like you imagine using this on Wraiths, it would be to protect them from a charge or something.
Yep.
But your Scarabs are there to die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You don't want to waste a CP on that.
Maybe this is a good way, actually, even a better way of doing it. That one is if you're blocking a charge.
Yes.
So you're going to move them into a position to be like, actually, tell you what, I'm going to deny that charge or make it harder for you to get to the.
So if your Wraiths were on, say it was Wraiths again, say they were on an objective, so you don't want to move them 6 inches off it.
Yep.
You could move the Scarabs 6 inches in to block that
swarm
charge.
them kind of thing. Yeah. Literally in the name.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
I like it. What about the other one?
Yeah, the second one is Counter Temporal Shift.
Yep.
This 1 CP. It's also the Canoptek Court. Use this in your opponent's shooting phase. You can select 1 Canoptek unit from your army that was selected as a target of 1 or more shooting attacks. And until the end of the phase, the unit can only be selected as a target of the range attacks if the attacking model is within 12 inches. So it's basically like gives them lone operative pretty much.
And that's actually really good now that you read out loud, because I've used this in situations where like these guys might be raising the banner, or maybe they might be raising an objective.
Yes,
So like basically raising objective requires them to be alive at the end of your next command phase.
Yes.
So some units might be targeting the Scarabs. So if you shoot them and they're alive, you pull that, then they're pretty much going to be safe apart from charges.
This is the only times, like you say, that there are certain situations like that where these are the only times where I would spend a CP to keep Scarabs alive, because the rest of the time they're there to die. But if that CP can score you victory points, then do it.
Again, even like in the no man's land, you can maybe engage on all fronts, maybe investigate signals. You want to keep them alive to do these things, and then maybe in the next turn, it's good to maybe think, tell you what, I've got these ones coming up. Let me try and keep them alive. But 2 good ones. That's kind of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The real meat here is in how best to play this unit because there's various ways in which you can use them. So they are, as we said, they're quite versatile and they're cheap. So you need some of those cheap versatile units to and the first one is obviously
scoring secondaries is the absolute main one. You know, these are, as you just mentioned, they're cheap, they're action monkeys, and they're freeing up other units because you don't want this big expensive Doomsday Arc that it costs like 125 points to be scoring your secondary. You
don't want your big shooting unit. You don't want to be having to do cleanse objective or something. Do you?
Exactly.
It's important, or having to move it because then it loses a heavy bonus.
Exactly, going from freeze to freeze to freeze, from freeze to twos. Exactly. So you want these ones, printing the Scarabs, really just to make sure that they're there to score these secondaries like teleport, hallmark, cleanse, engage, error denial, behind enemy lines, and investigate signals.
Yeah, there's a lot there that they can score, and
they've got the movement for it as well.
Yeah, 10-inch movement. There's only three of them is costing you 40 points. It's a good trade if they can score you a couple of secondaries.
Definitely. What's next?
You just mentioned this briefly, but it's slightly different application is screening. In this case, screening your deployment zone. So I'm a big fan of this, and this is often how I'll use Scarabs as cheap units to screen out opponents' deep strike into my back lines.
Good.
So 3 of these stretch out a little bit they can block off a reason, an 18-inch bubble.
Quite a distance, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From there, and it's like this bubble from there kind of thing.
Yeah, you can cover a lot with a cheap unit.
Yeah,
and the 2 units of 3 Scarabs in each corner or close to the corners of your deployment zone. They're not only preventing deep strike within 9 at least, but they're also close enough because they've got that 10-inch move. They're close enough to go and get you investigate signals if that comes up.
Definitely.
So, most games the likelihood is in most games you're going to pull that card. The probabilities you get is good. Mm-hmm. So if you for a game for 80 points, if you've got 2 units in the corners there that can just score you 4 points for 80 points for 4 VP, why not?
Because again, sometimes you got to think about it's not about scoring the point. It's all about actually I'm denying you from also getting my points.
Denying your opponent getting in there for behind enemy lines, deploy, teleport home with that kind of stuff.
I love it.
So cheap, nice and cheap way of doing that. Yeah. And what's next? Do you think?
Stealing objective, I believe, is next.
The other way of screening. Screening higher value units.
Oh, right. What's this one? So, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah. You touched on this before in terms of like blocking charges or whatever. So you can, because Scarabs are cheap, you can use them to position them in front of higher value targets to prevent your opponent charging or to move block vehicles and monsters.
Yeah.
So, for example, if your opponent has an Orc Trucker Boys and it's heading towards your Canoptic Doomstalker, which you don't want them to get to.
True. Yeah.
You can position your unit of 6 Scarab Swarms in between 2 ruins to prevent the truck from using its full movement to get to the Doomstalker.
That's true.
The Scarabs are going to die.
Of course.
Yeah, but if they hold the truck up for a
worthy sacrifice, basically,
Yeah. So I think that's the other side of screening. And then the next one, as you mentioned, is a really helpful one. Yeah,
stealing objectives. I quite like it. It's sneaky, is what I kind of like.
That's why you like. Yeah, it's one of those plays that your opponent might not be expecting, isn't it?
Well, exactly. They might be like tucked away doing a little secondary in your turn, and then you charge it, you do a bit of action, you're fighting over an objective, and then suddenly you just scoop in from the side with your 10-inch movement, and then whatever charge you want to get after that. Because again, it's one of those nice things that people don't forget is that you charge these in. These have reduced the OC down to a point where you're owning the objective. So now the opponent has 2 options. Well, do I kill or do I attempt to try and take out the ones that are causing me the most hurt, i.e. the ones that are killing my unit?
Yes.
Or do I take out the ones that are removing me from my objective? It's kind of a hard toss-up because it's like, well, I do need the objective.
Yeah.
But if I don't kill you, I'm going to then lose to the other guy. So it's kind of that hard balance.
We talk about this in a lot of our videos, but it's when you're playing those games, the ability to force your opponent to make hard choices, where it's a lose-lose, if you like. Where whichever choice they make impacts them negatively in some way.
Exactly.
And that's a really good point that you've made there in terms of using your Scarabs like that.
Aye.
And on a simple level, it can score you victory points. So if you bring in those Scarabs onto a contested objective, gets you capture enemy outpost, for example, that's 8 points, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that it can make it can be a big swing.
Very big swing. Final one.
Yeah, I mean, this is an obvious one, but it's attacking vehicles, which you just talked about. So they can't fail to detonate on when they're attacking a vehicle because you get +1 to the dice roll. So the lowest you can roll is a 2.
Nice.
So you can't destroy a base and then roll a 1 and it does nothing. It will always do wounds to a vehicle.
Yeah.
And I think vehicles still quite a vehicle heavy meta. So the ability to just chip some of those wounds off with the Scarab base is pretty. It's a good trade, isn't it?
Exactly, because again, you're bringing them back over and over and over again. And the vehicles typically, if you're going with like a transport, it's only going to kind of try and ram you, so it's not going to do a lot of wounds back at you.
No.
So naturally, you will be taking it off.
Move block, tie it up, and then like we talked about that Orc truck before, you move block, you tie it up, and then you can actually do some damage to it as well.
Yeah.
That's is a nice bit of icing on the cake, isn't it?
It certainly is. But yeah, moving on from those ones then, do they combine well with a unit?
I think they do. I mean, what the Cryptex can't lead Scarabs, but if the unit's within 6 inches of a Cryptek, obviously it gains +1 OC, which is big. The other unit that you can combine them with is Spiders, Canoptek Spiders. They can bring back 1 destroyed Scarab base every command phase.
Yep.
I mean, you've got to think about this because a Spider costs 75 points, right? And each Scarab base, as we said, is 13.3 points. So the most a Spider could bring back if it brought back 1 for 5 phases is like 66.5 points.
Something like that,
if my maths is right. So, I mean, a Spider is not going to get you back Scarab, its points value in Scarabs. The Spider would have to do something else within the game.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other things a Spider can do.
Yeah.
But the other things they can do is they can give you a 5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds to a unit.
Yeah.
But it's hard to position them to be within that range of the Scarabs
it's like a small range.
within range of something to give it the feel no pain. So
hard toss up.
It's a hard toss up, and ultimately, as much as I love my little bugs, they're there to die. So
they're there to screen, die, and potentially get me some little points.
Yeah, so spending Cryptex, I'm going to have in my lists because they're good, even though they've just gone up in points. Yep. But I'm probably not going to spend points premium on a Spiders to try and make Scarabs better.
I've tried using the Scarabs, but these ones primarily work better with the what's the HQ called again? Oh, there's a Canoptek Cryptek. He's the spider guy.
Zaraz, Illumino Zaraz.
Yes, because he's a Cryptek.
Yeah.
So he gives the benefits out. So you see a lot of big players use him surrounded by Scarabs to give the minus OC, and he's wandering around to give them plus OC, and he's a little objective steal every now and then as well.
It gives everything -1 incoming AP and +1 outgoing AP as well.
Which protects them a bit better as well.
So it gives them a bit more protection. Yeah,
it's good. They're the main ones. I think that's that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So how do we use them, Dan? So I think I'm pretty much on the same boat as you when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think.
I think we briefly didn't mention about how to fight against them. Actually,
that's a good point. Let's do that one first.
Let's get that one out of the way first.
Okay.
Fighting side of things, they aren't tough. They are pretty weak toughness 2. So most
toughness 2, 6-up save.
Yeah. So most things you'll be hitting them. I think we briefly mentioned them before. Briefly hit. Well, you can be hitting them on what? 3s, most likely.
Most
2s.
likely wounding them on 3s, most likely 2s. Yeah.
But I think the main thing that you've got to get through them is the amount of wounds that they've got. So primarily flamers will probably rinse through these, chew through these super easy.
It's
Gatling cannons.
The amount of wounds, and also if you've got 0, you need AP. So because Scarabs, because of their nature, are largely going to be in cover for a lot of the time. So if they're getting a 5-up save, without any AP, you've got to throw an extra
good couple of bolters in there.
An extra bunch of firepower in there just to make sure that they don't make all the saves. Yeah,
exactly. So if that's in cover, especially the Scarabs, will never make them easy for people to get as well. They're always going to be hiding away. So indirect might be okay to kind of chew through some of these as well. But if you're going to start, I don't think this is the unit just to throw a little. I've got a spare bolt. I'm going to throw it towards you.
Chip damage is not going to work.
It's not going to work.
No.
You need a focus fire, get them all down because A, they will come back, and B, we're going to make them hard for them to see because they're such small bases. You can hide them in those awkward little corners, so you're not going to be able to get them very easily. So,
example we had is a unit of say if you had 3 Scarab Swarms in cover, it's been targeted by a squad of 5 Terminators with Storm Bolters and an Assault Cannon. And that squad of Terminators on an average dice roll will not get enough wounds through, and the Scarabs will make enough saves to survive that.
Yeah.
So it won't kill them off.
Yeah.
So when you're positioning your units, make sure you've got some redundancy. So for example, in this example I've said, you would make sure that you had 10 Assault Intercessors that were near. So make sure those Assault Intercessors are in range of the Scarabs with their pistols.
Yeah.
And then if the the Terminators don't roll as well as anticipated or only roll an average roll, you've got another unit that can step in and finish those Scarabs off.
Yes.
Because if you don't, then the same with any other Necrons, they'll just start coming back. Yeah.
And everyone starts throwing tanks. Yeah. Like, why are they back? I've been throwing. It's like, you didn't kill them.
Yeah.
They're going to come back. Yeah. No,
but in terms of how we use them, yes.
I'm very much the same as you. To be fair on this one, I don't think that I love screening is the main thing. You're just making sure that the big high value Terminators aren't going to come in my backline.
Yeah,
that's just going to rampage through my more protected units that I would like to see.
Particularly in the likes of Canoptek Court, my backline is going to be things like Canoptek Doomstalkers, which are got great at long range shooting. Got some anti tank punch, etc. But I don't want them in combat.
No,
because they're only hitting on 4s as it is. So you don't want they're shooting on 5s in combat, hitting on 5. So very much screening your battle lines is really important. I only ever use them for screening and scoring secondaries, but I absolutely do love getting them into enemy units and blowing them up.
Yeah, it's like I like the idea of it. I can never get it done yet. Yeah. When I do it, I will let you know. But for now, I charge them in. They just whiff everything basically.
I mean, it's even if you're up against, like you say, even Marines, it's a reasonable trade-off. But something like a Terminator or Custodes, obviously Custodes have got to feel no pain. But if you roll well and your opponent rolls badly and you take off a Custodes or a Terminator off the table with one base of Scarabs,
you'll be laughing. Yeah, you'll be static.
I've never really used them yet for reducing an opponent's OC. It's typically, but they're usually dead by the time we're you're getting into those turns where you're really contesting the mid board.
Yeah.
But for screening and for scoring a few of those secondaries, I think they're really good value for money in terms of the points that they cost.
Very nice.
There are some other units that can do it. Perhaps some Necron players will say that they prefer Tomb Blades, for example, for those secondary scorers because they still have some damage output.
Yep.
We've also you mentioned in the past, Flayed ones are really good at a lot of those secondaries.
Go check out that video.
And again, also have they can put out a lot of wounds in combat.
Yeah, deceivingly a lot.
So in a way, we're kind of blessed because you've got options.
Yeah,
and it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other because Scarabs are so cheap. And how often do we write lists these days where you find you've got an extra 40, just the way it falls, you've got an extra 40 points or something.
Exactly.
Chuck 3 Scarabs in.
Exactly. Why not? Yeah. Well, secondary captures. Yeah. Spot on. No, well, that's it. Well, I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're. I love them. They're in almost all of my lists for the reasons that we've talked about, and in a vehicle meta and the terrain. The way that particularly competitive players with terrain. 3 Scarabs can block a vehicle's movement for a turn. That's massive.
Yeah,
it can really make a huge difference.
I like it.
So we're big fans. Let us know what you think of them in the comments. How do you use them in your lists? Is there any ways that we haven't picked up on? Let us know. And thank you again for joining us.
Spot on. Thank you.